Hey everybody, DocMTG here. I think it's time we talk about Big Red. And no, I'm not talking about Santa Claus, but Mono Red. Let's get right into it with creatures, and since this is Big Red, we have no 1 or 2 drop creatures. Not to worry though, we have enough burn to deal with aggro. Kicking it off, in our 3 drop slot we have 3 copies of Hanweir Garrison. For 2 colorless and a red, this 2/3 human soldier is quite aggressive. Whenever the garrison attacks, you put 2 1/1 red human tokens onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. If it is not dealt with fast enough, it can clog up the board with tokens, giving you blockers for later in the game or more attackers. And oh yeah, we are also running Hanweir battlements as a 3 of, in order to meld and get the Withering Township. I'll leave the meld creature up here for you all to read. It is not hard to pull this off. In a single game, I've been able to fire it off twice. Next up, we have 3 copies of Sinprodder. The 3/2 Little Devil for 2 and a red has 2 great abilities, one which a lot of opponents forget about. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal the top card of your library. Your opponent may have you put that card into your graveyard, but if they do, Sinprodder deals damage to that player equal to that card's converted mana cost. Otherwise, you put it into your hand. This is a great way to get some card advantage filtered through your deck and, deal a couple points of damage over the game to your opponent. The ability that most people forget about that Sinprodder has is it has Menace, requiring 2 creatures to block him. Moving right along into our 4 drop slot, we have a total of 4 creatures, a pair of Impetuous Devils. These little critters pack a punch and accelerate the clock for your opponent. For 2 and double red, the 6/1 gang of devils has Trample and Haste. When they attack, up to 1 target creature defending player controls blocks it this combat if able, giving you the opportunity to take down something big or screw with your opponent's blocking assignments. Only downside is, at the beginning of your end step, you have to sacrifice them. Still, not bad for our Ball of Lightning. A potential game ender. But anywho, the next pair in our 4 drop slot is Skyship Stalker. With the same converted mana cost as Impetuous Devils, we get a dragon that's a toolbox. This 3/3 flyer has 3 activated abilities, each costing just 1 red. For red, the Stalker gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Or you can give it first strike to knock down that smuggler's copter right out of the sky. Or give it haste until end of turn. If it's the late game and it resolves, it's a great mana sink. Give it haste and pump it up and swing in for lethal, it's more than possible. A total of 5 creatures occupy the 5 drop slot. First, we have a pair of Mirrorwing Dragons. For 3 and 2 red, you get a 4/5 flying dragon that I think is a little underrated, and it's big enough to block Avacyn and any other 4 power flyers. It has a very interesting ability that will leave your opponent wondering how to deal with it. Whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell that targets only Mirrorwing Dragon, that player copies that spell for each other creature he or she controls that spell could target. Each copy targets a different one of those creatures. While targeted removal will end up in a one-sided board wipe for your opponent, a pump spell may result in their board becoming very large and your death. Note, this is a double-edged sword, hence why we only are running 2 of this dragon. Next we have 3 copies of Goblin Dark Dwellers. The 4/4 Menace Goblin, for a converted mana cost of 3 and double red, has, when Goblin Dark Dwellers enters the battlefield, you may cast target instant or sorcery card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. And if that card would be put into your graveyard, you exile this turn. We have a total of 11 targets, which I will highlight later on, and touch upon a few of them. And lastly, we have 3 copies of 1 creature that fall into our 6 drop slot. Combustible Gearhulk. The 6/6 construct has first strike and is equipped with the ability to give you card draw or kill your opponent depending what your opponent chooses, because when Combustible Gearhulk enters the battlefield, target opponent may have you draw 3 cards. If that opponent doesn't, put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard. Just like Sinprodder, the Combustible Gearhulk deals damage to that player equal to the total converted mana cost of each of those cards. All of this just for 4 and 2 red, that's a pretty good turn 6 play. In total, that gives us 18 creatures to work with. Moving into non-creature spells, we have a total of 19 spells. 1 Planeswalker, 2 copies of it. 1 vehicle, 9 instants, and 7 sorceries. Getting the Planeswalker out of the way, I mean, we only have 2 different mono-red Planeswalkers at the moment, and we're running 2 copies of Chandra, Torch of Defiance. With 4 abilities, she can produce pseudo card advantage, ramp us, burn target creatures, and with her ultimate, she can end the game. There is 1 non-red spell in the main board. It's our powered down Dragon Lord Atarka, the legendary vehicle Sky Sovereign console flagship. For just 5 mana, this vehicle has crew 3 with a power and toughness of 6/5, flying, and whenever Sky Sovereign console flagship enters the battlefield or attacks, it deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. That is actually an amazing ability when we're going up against heavy planeswalker decks. Moving right along, our instant package contains 1 copy of Rush of Adrenaline for 1 red. We can buff our team by targeting Mirrorwing Dragon and powering up our red human tokens with +2, +1, and trample until end of turn. 2 copies of Galvanic Bombardment to burn away early game aggro creatures. 1 copy of Fall of the Titans for X, X, and red, and a surge cost of X and red, which is what we're really trying to aim for. Fall of the Titans deals X damage to each of up to 2 target creatures and or players. A great way to burn away a creature and deal damage to your opponent. A singleton copy of Harnessed Lightning, just our better form of Fiery Temper. For 1 red, we have something for early game threats on board, but we do run 3 copies of Fiery Temper itself. For 1 and double red, we can deal 3 damage to target creature or player. We have 2 spells that can trigger its madness cost for just 1 red. Which brings us into our final instant, Faithful Showdown. For 2 and double red, Faithful Showdown deals damage to target creature or player equal to the number of cards in your hand. Discard all the cards in your hand and then draw that many cards. Let's say you're at 5 mana. You can cast this and fire off Fiery Temper and refill your hand. The second discard spell gets us right into our sorceries. Cathartic Reunion. For 1 red, with an additional cost of discarding 2 cards, another way to, activate madness. You discard 2 cards and you draw 3 cards. So why not, burn your opponent with some madness while drawing some cards. 3 copies of Incendiary Flow. For 1 red, we have more burn to either deal to early game threats on board, or just burn your opponent's face off. At least, the upside to this, if a creature dealt damage this way dies this turn, you get to exile it. And finally, 3 copies of Structural Distortion. For 3 in a red, you get to exile target artifact or land, and then Distortion deals 2 damage to that permanent's controller. An amazing way to deal with Smuggler's Copter, or lands, like man lands. We have Hissing Quagmire, Lumbering Falls, Needle Spires, while continuing to burn your opponent's face off. Yes, there is a plethora of cards that can work very well in mono red. But moving along into our mana base, we have 20 mountains and 3 copies, like I said earlier, of Hanweir Battlements. This land is quite interesting. It can tap for colorless, or you can tap a red and tap it, and you can give target creature haste until end of turn. And obviously, you can pay 3 and 2 red, tap it. As long as you control Hanweir Battlements and Hanweir Garrison, you exile them both and return them to the battlefield as the Withering Township. Talking about sideboard options, I have Magmatic Chasm when I can't get through their ground blockers and they have a lot of tokens. Another copy of Harnessed Lightning for more early game creature destruction. 2 copies of Galvanic Bombardment, again, for that early game creature destruction. Another copy of Cathartic Reunion. Another copy of Fall of the Titans. A Ruinous Gremlin, just to continue destroying artifacts. The 4th copy of Fiery Temper. 3 copies of Hijack. 3 copies of Bedlam Reveler. And 1 copy of Tears of Valakut to deal with Avacyn when she flashes in. The deck for me has been very consistent. I was very happy with it. If you guys have a similar build like this, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. Let me know what you think about it. And if you enjoyed the deck techs, subscribe to the channel for more, hit the thumbs up button, and leave a comment below. We can maybe discuss it more on the Facebook page. But as always guys, this is Doc MTG, and until next time, peace.